Welcome to Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck. And I am Alanna.
I'm Kelsey.
And we are ready to go because we've been talking for a while. As we are wont to do. You may have noticed that our, last episode, I guess it would have been at this point, because we're just putting it
Yeah.
out this week. We split up our long-winded Patreon episode into two parts, and we released Kelsey's awesome part of that about the
Yeah.
Coffin Lake incident. Because, yeah, that was really cool. And it was the first part of the episode. It made sense. And then if you want the
The
extra
alien.
juicy goodness,
Yeah, the alien sex encounters
you
story.
have to go to the Patreon.
Yeah.
It's true.
There's plenty over there.
Yeah, I don't have a video to show you, but she does describe
What?
it. And there's other cool stuff too, because I was like, one of my favorite parts is just like that friend who's your best friend enough that they're gonna get their boyfriend to drive by in their cool car, even if it's a spaceship.
Yeah.
I thought that it was really cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
go check that out. It was fun. We had a lot of fun
So
recording
much
it.
fun.
Yeah, it
I
definitely
I
got a little
still don't think
dirty.
I've processed everything you told me. I'm like, it was a lot.
I oh, not to dwell on it, but yes, there was aliens named Akon, and then you were teaching me about alien. Alien. You were teaching me about Akon, the singer, because I was like,
Yeah.
I had so much trouble searching this when then he came up. And then like on Wikipedia it was like Akon, real name, 17,000 words. I was like,
Yeah.
what is his real name?
Yeah.
Anyway, very many rabbit holes and very enjoyable. And we hope you patrons enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it was definitely like at least your part was over an hour and then my part was over an hour. So then um we did decide to split it, especially after poor Kelsey's unfortunate also
Yeah.
equipment issues. So it was a combination of um
Yeah.
a series of unfortunate events. No. Just kidding.
I thought I broke my mic, but I was able to find a new cord after
I mean,
countless hours going to a bunch of different places.
your cord was destroyed.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
like
factual.
insane. But everything's good now. We're good to go again.
Oh, thank
So,
God. But
yeah.
that's okay. You guys don't have to worry. We'll never leave you without something to listen to. We've got our big support network with the Dark Cast. So we have like all these awesome shows to choose from that we're like, if we can't get an episode out, like you guys will have our back.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we get to share you with our listeners. So it's very quid pro quo or whatever. It's good.
Yeah. It's been nice.
It has been, and yes, hopefully we'll get to do some collaboration soon. And we definitely know we're doing a special that's coming up, soon. We can't talk about it too much, but maybe in the summer or something with Darkcast that you guys will just have to stay tuned for. So it's going to
Yes.
be fun too. Excited. All right, I don't know if I thought of a good, interesting fact that I learned this week. I mean, I've learned so many things. It's just no, too much to choose from. Too many
I've read
things.
all the things.
Oh, and I don't want to get started on a tangent of like, well, I watched this movie or. I did hear something cool today that was like from this life coach that was talking on a podcast that was a little bit like, I think they said something like, if you hear that little inner voice, sometimes it's like a GPS. It could be telling you to go left or right. And you might hear it when it's whispering, and you might not hear it till it's screaming, but it's always trying to help you out there.
Yeah.
And I was
It's
like,
true.
it's an interesting way to look at it. I kind of like that.
Say it's a skill that you kind of have to practice at. Kind of like listening to your instincts when they're trying to tell you
Yes.
something. It's not something everybody can do, but it's something you can learn how to do and something that you can practice.
Yeah, I think I do need to practice. And I think that fits in completely with our subject matter this episode of like a divine intervention or a
Yeah.
presence other than yourself guiding you. It's just very much like, yeah, sometimes you gotta just let it take over because your gut might know better than you why you feel that person seems creepy or whatever. And I've been definitely hearing a lot of like stories like that lately, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it happens so much. You just gotta be paying attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah, if
Yeah.
something feels wrong, it normally means it is. Like there's normally a
Yeah.
reason that you feel that way.
Yeah, even if these people look quote unquote harmless,
Yeah. And
your
that'd be
gut knows
different than,
better.
I guess, people that have a lot of anxiety or get really anxious before things happen. Is that would be something that's kind of be considered separate than this. Because that
Yeah,
always.
because that can be more irrational. I mean,
Yeah.
not that it can't be helpful to be like extra anxious or at least have your head on a swivel, but at the same time
Yeah.
it's not always like based
It's
on
not this.
something.
Yeah,
And
it's not the same thing.
right, and neither is your gut instinct, but you're like, "Oh, if something's telling me this is wrong and this doesn't usually just act up. It's not just my normal
Yeah.
like worries about my
Yeah,
family or
you're
whatever."
normal. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
good way to say it.
Yeah, people be like walking down the street and they're like, okay, this guy looked fine. But all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to cross the street. That was your
Yeah.
brain telling you something was wrong.
Your lizard brain.
Oh my God. Not the lizard brain. But it's so crazy. Yeah. How you can get in touch with all that.
Yeah.
Women's intuition. Everyone's got intuition, really. We just gotta, yeah, be in tune.
But yeah, I didn't know if you wanted. You said you had some stuff at the beginning of your segment about it.
Yeah, my focus is more specifically on sort of the third man factor phenomenon is usually what they call it because it's like a specific voice in your head getting you out of these perilous situations. So,
Okay, is it a little bit different than like your gut instinct? Kind of like just have an uneasy feeling?
yeah.
Okay. Because I did look
Yeah,
up,
it's
I have some
a bit
stuff that's
more
more about like gut
specific.
feelings.
Right,
And it's
right.
like
Which I
in
was cool because I
general.
was like, okay, we kind of went in two different directions, which
Yeah.
is always fun because there really is these things are like interconnected, but they're not
Yeah.
necessarily the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always don't mind going first, but I don't. Ours are kind of different, so it doesn't matter who goes first,
Yeah.
really.
I can go. Mine's I think gonna be pretty short. It's not a whole lot, but sometimes that's how it goes. Uh,
I found quotes from like a book, so
oh,
let me
nice.
tell you, my it wasn't long necessarily because I sat down and wrote out 10 pages. It was a little
You got
easier than
a
that.
cramp in your hand, like ah.
Oh, that does
Uh,
happen.
that's why I don't write out my notes. I type only.
You
Nothing
want to
gets
write
written down.
faster than you can. Yeah.
I can't. I just writing. I spell too many things wrong, and then I
Can't
miss
read it
words.
later?
No, like I miss whole words when I'm writing stuff down, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not very good at it. Never really was.
I
Uh,
was gonna say I've taken notes while getting a little buzzed before, and then they got increasingly harder to read.
yeah. If I am like if something's being dictated to me like verbally, I'm really good at either typing or texting it out like really fast. I'll get really, but I'm not good at reading something and typing or writing it at the same time. There's like a
Did,
disconnect of that, but I'm really good at if I'm hearing
oh,
it, I can do it super fast. Like basically I'll be like a word or two behind the person and that's it. Like I'm
so
that fast. But writing it out, if I'm trying to
oh,
like copy notes from a textbook or something when I was at high school, I was never good at that. Like it takes me forever.
okay.
Yeah, it's like
Was that how, like, how would you take notes normally when you guys were in school? Would they be like,
mm,
because I feel like we were always having to write down. I didn't have
yeah, like I never had
computers
my
or,
laptop in school. So it was like writing stuff down and I was good at it in
yeah.
school, but since I like graduated, I like don't really write stuff down other than like little
Yes,
to-do lists. So I don't know, I feel like
that's
my
true.
penmanship has gotten worse and I I'm
Yeah.
just not in the habit of writing anymore.
Oh, totally. Yeah, mine can be like completely chicken scratch versus
Yeah.
actually legible and almost neat looking when I have a nice fine tip pen and I'm kind of taking my time and I think it
Yeah.
looks really bad, but then you know, you always think your own penmanship is bad and people are like, no, yours is legible. And I'm like, okay, I guess. But then other times I'm like, is it? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just depends. But
Um, so
that's
the
funny.
first part I found, because I, like you said, I kind of focused more on, I guess, your gut feelings or, I don't know, things that kind of make you second guess what's going on around you.
The red flags, your
Yeah.
intuition
Yeah.
spikes. Yeah, yeah.
So this little bit was from Future, russellfuture.com.
Ooh,
And this said it was
Russell
the
Future.
yeah.
Sorry, that's fun.
It said it's the psychology of intuition or trusting your gut. And they had a couple things I liked saying, like, how does a gut feeling work? And they say a gut feelings or intuitions come from patterns that we've identified in our past experiences. And your subconscious mind continuously processes information that you are not consciously aware of, not only when you're asleep, but also when you're awake.
Okay, that's interesting.
This helps explain the aha moments you experience when you see, feel, hear, or learn something that you actually already know, or you already knew. And the revelation of
Okay.
this obvious thing occurs when your conscious mind finally learns something that your subconscious mind had already known. So it's kind
Yeah,
of, yeah.
I was gonna say it does seem it's very subconscious. You
Mm-hmm.
do something without thinking
Yeah.
necessarily it out. Yeah.
It
Hmm.
goes on saying gut feelings or intuitions occur when your brain makes a substantial match or mismatch between past experiences and current experiences. What we are noticing are patterns based on past experiences. We store these patterns and associated information as long-term memory and then retrieve the information when we see these patterns again in our everyday experience, which is kind of interesting
Okay.
way to look at it. That it's yeah, like
Yeah.
sometimes something happens and you may not remember all the details of the day or something that happened, but like subconsciously you do because it happened to you, like you experienced that and your mind or body can like recall that if it becomes necessary or like needed. Otherwise it's just going to stay kind of more in the back of your like subconscious because you don't need to remember every minute of every day all the time.
No, or it's away in the lockbox because you have all these ghosts you gotta lock away like
Yeah.
Danny from The Shining. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that. It's in the subconscious and it's not triggered until
Until you need it.
whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or something. Yeah, exactly. It triggers it, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, I didn't want that,"
Yeah,
but here it
right?
is.
So in looking up ones, I guess I looked for some of the stories that people told. I think most of these were pulled from Reddit for like other sites. Um, but yeah, just stories that I guess focused around people that had seemed to have a really strong gut feeling, and then what happened, it wasn't something like small. It was something that was very like life and death level of like something very, very, very bad could have happened
Yeah.
if they didn't have this feeling that got them out of that situation.
That's kind of what I like about
Yeah.
listening to the Let's Not Meet stories, because they're
Yeah.
like, people have this feeling or whatever, they have this brush, and you're like, oh my God, if that had gone like just one degree the
Yeah.
other way, you would have been a true crime case I was listening to on a
Yep.
podcast. Yeah, yeah. Those
Exactly.
stories are like crazy.
So I think my first my first couple are from the same site.
Ooh.
Again, I think they took them from Reddit, but it was on boredpanda.com, and
Oh, I've
it
heard of
was
that.
under, yeah, it was under bad gut feeling stories. So
Ugh.
this was from, it said user OJJ. This
Oh,
was story. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so this one says, I lived in South Africa where home invasions are pretty brutal. Grew up on a plot and lived in a flat adjacent to the main house. So they're not, so this is like a separate thing, kind of like pool house, kind of like it's a whole separate like house on the property.
Right. Or grandmother's
Um,
suite that's like above the
yeah,
garage or something. Yeah.
something like that. One
Okay.
night I woke up randomly around 2 a.m. and had this tingling feeling that something wasn't right. I opened my flat door to look outside and see if anything was going on. That feeling didn't subside, so decided to get dressed and do a walk around the garden. Before leaving my flat, something told me to peep through the door, and as I did, I saw some guy walking around the house, like around their house. Yeah,
Okay. Not good.
no. I then phoned my sister who lived in the house, but no answer. I I then phoned my stepmom, and after a while, my sister answered, which was really strange. I told my sister to wake the F up and walk around the house and make sure. I
So,
love that. Uh, yeah, walk around the house, make sure the doors and windows were closed, as there was someone in the garden. She kept trying to blow it off
okay.
and even said that she'd unlocked the house door so that I could come inside the house. I told her that's a stupid idea and I wasn't going outside. Since usually burglars are armed and dangerous, I had nothing to protect myself with. My sister missed a breath during our call, something that usually happens when one is frightened. So out of instinct, I asked her if everything was all right. She should say yes twice, and she only said it once. So like she's on the
Oh.
phone with her and notices like something's weird in this phone call. So
Huh.
she asks her sister if she's all right, and if she is actually all right, say yes twice. And she only replies yes once. So that means she's not all right.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
yeah.
weird.
The story goes on saying, turns out a group of men had already made it into the house and they had a gun to her head, telling her to convince me to leave my flat.
Oh my
Which,
God.
like, yeah. A few seconds later, the automatic light outside my flat turned on. I then told my sister it's okay and I was going to go back to sleep. I then phoned the police and the neighborhood watch, which took the
Ah,
longest 30 minutes of my life to show up, which scares me. It
wow.
took them
Smart
30
thinking, though,
minutes.
to play
Yeah.
it cool like that. I was like,
Yep.
wait, she's going to sleep? Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Catching
No,
on.
she's not. She's not. Once I saw the police lights outside, I had to make a 100-meter dash to the gate to open it up for them. I think they're in some sort of like kind of like family compound type property.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a secure one that has a
Yeah.
gate and a guard. Yeah.
Mhm. I then talked them over what happened and that we should investigate the house. I walked around the perimeter with them until we found where the guys had entered. We entered the house, which was totally trashed, until we got to the main room where there was a blanket over the bed. I then yanked the blanket off to find my whole family under there as they were all tied up and frightened. It says shirtless. I'm sure they meant shitless.
No.
Shitless. Thankfully, nobody's dead. Nobody's dead. Um,
I'm sorry.
it just
Yes.
makes me sad because it said that like her whole family's there, included her 1-year-old niece, like was tied up on the bed
Oh my
under that
God.
blanket. Yeah. It says, if it weren't for my instincts, they would have not hesitated to kill me and probably do worse to my family. They had actually already poisoned the family dogs.
No.
Yeah, probably in their stuff
Trigger
to, like,
warning. No.
yeah, keep
The niece, it's all bad. That's
yeah.
shitty.
Says must have been a guardian angel or something looking over my shoulder that night. Like, yeah, that's a lot. Like,
Because the way, like, yeah, she was the only one that woke up and was able to really
yeah. Well, like,
do
this had
anything.
already happened. Like, they had already broken into the main house and were probably scouting out her flat when she woke up, saw the guy outside,
Oh,
and then she starts
right.
calling. And it's after a bunch of repeated phone calls that
Because she's
the
in a
main house.
separate. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. It's
Yeah.
just off from the main house. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was forgetting that
So,
point.
like, she woke up and they had already, presumably, like, taken over the main house.
But they didn't check
Um,
out the fucking gatehouse or whatever.
yeah, exactly.
The guest house. I don't know. You
Yeah.
rich people tell me. What's it called? No. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. The next one's also from the Board Panda website. Was from user Wine Country Girl. Um,
All right.
this one isn't very long. It says, now I don't remember this, but my mom does very vividly, as you can imagine. When I was 3, she and her friends were getting ready to go out to the bar in the next city over. My mom, being super young when she had me, was often out on the weekends with friends, so this wasn't unusual at all. However, on this night, I, a usually super well mannered kid, threw the biggest tantrum of my life. Yeah. Screaming at the top of my lungs, throwing myself around, throwing things, etc., because she was leaving.
Oh,
Yeah.
poor girl.
She was super mad because she couldn't leave me with the babysitter like this, especially since she felt something was wrong because this was very unlike me as a child. Her friend,
Okay.
yeah, her friends left and she stayed home with me, still pretty pissed off at toddler me. Um, yeah. The next morning, she and I walked to my grandma's house to use the phone because there was no cell phones yet. She calls her friend's house to hear about the night out, and her friend's mom answers. Turns out they had been trying to get a hold of my mom all night. There was actually a horrific car accident. This part breaks my heart. It says all of my mom's friends, except for the driver, had passed away.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Had she gone, there was
Wow.
no way she would have survived in the car.
Yeah,
Um,
holy shit.
yeah. I don't
That would be
know
quite the
what
phone call.
situation was it, if it was like drunk driving or what the cause was. There's
Right.
no other details. It just says,
Hard
still
to
haunts
say.
me. Oh, yeah. Still haunts me to think about to this day, and my mom never really recovered from it. Like, I can't imagine losing like 3 of your friends like that. Like,
Yeah, and it's one of those. I was supposed to go, and then I didn't
yeah,
go.
the survivor guilt.
Yeah, can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Uh, this one's way longer. Oh, that's why this person had 2 stories. I was like, why is this one so long? Yeah. This
Ooh.
user, I think it's a girl. At first I read it and I thought it was a guy, but it's a girl.
Yeah, that can make it a
Um,
little confusing sometimes.
yeah. The first story, it doesn't matter. The second one, it makes more sense. But this
Okay, yeah.
user is enjoy. Enjoy.
Shut up and
Um,
enjoy.
yeah. Shut up. It says, okay, I have 2 of these, but first is why I'll always trust my gut. When I was little, I always used to sleep over at my cousin's house, who had this awesome wooden bunk bed that I would sleep on the bottom bunk. And when I was 7, I went over for another sleepover, and we ate Chinese food with my aunt and uncle. Then me and my cousin stayed up late playing video games before going to bed. And when I was little, I used to fall asleep right away and sleep very deeply. My family still jokes that not even a car going through the house could wake me up.
Oh.
That's
Uh-oh.
not quite what happens, but definitely what I thought was going to happen.
It's never a good sign when you hear that at the
No.
beginning of the story. You're like, oh God, what are they gonna sleep through? Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, sometime after I've fallen asleep, I wake up because I have this ridiculous feeling that I have to roll over. I didn't want to because I was super comfortable and sleeping how I normally do in the middle of the bed with my foot hanging off. I kept right? I kept
Okay.
arguing with what felt like myself over rolling over until finally I did. But apparently it wasn't enough because then I had the urge to literally cuddle as tight as I could against the wall. Since I had already rolled over, I figured why not? As I'm trying to press myself as hard as possible against the wall, the bunk bed collapses. And
What?
yeah, a broken metal bar goes straight through the bed where I had been sleeping, like pierces through the mattress. Yeah.
Oh my God. I was not
Right?
expecting that.
Yeah.
Like
I
intruder
was
in the room. I'm all prepped for anything like true crime
yeah.
related.
No, this one kind of threw me off. I'm like, "Oh wow." It's like
Wow.
yeah, you just had a
Yeah.
weird feeling about the bed. Like, yeah.
I have heard similar stories. Yeah, yeah. Like someone's
Yeah.
driving, they just barely missed something or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you look up at the last minute. It's like, ooh,
Yeah.
wow.
Um, this one gets me too, though, because it says I was stuck, somehow unharmed, in that little space against the wall, like between that and the wall. Like they were stuck
Wow.
there until my uncle could cut me out. My cousin had fallen from the top bunk when it collapsed, but was also unharmed. So I think they were both on the top bunk. Um, or no, they were on the bottom. The bottom, something must have like pierced through
Right, but they're
on
saying the
theirs.
cousin's okay too.
Yeah, their cousin fell off the top, but was fine.
Right. Okay.
So that's their first story. Their second one
Jeez.
is very like true crimey. This
Oh.
says next happened when I was 16 in the summertime. I grew up in a super small town and used to walk or bike everywhere with my dog, and I was usually alone. I had the day off from work, so I took a book and walked with my lab 4 miles from one of my favorite lakes and laid down on the beach to read a book and tan while my dog played in the water.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, is she
Yeah.
walking or reading a book? This sounds like me and my
Did
abandoned
it
like
hit by a car? No.
well, our parking lot at work has been very quiet since the pandemic.
Oh,
Well, that's when I came there, but like yeah, it's been a place where people just walk around. Even like the
fair.
neighborhood, I've seen people from other like businesses or whatever and they're just kind of like enjoying a walk even though it's not like
That's nice. I like
it's
that.
not a walkable neighborhood, it's an industrial park, but we try to get our little exercise in. Yeah.
Nice.
So I was like,
Uh,
okay, she's walking and reading and her dog? No.
no, no, walking her dog, and now she's set up kind of at the beach by this water.
That sounds nice.
Um, After a few hours of being there, I noticed a rowdy group of boys, one who looked a little familiar. It was a weekday, so there was really only me, my dog, and a fisherman at the landing with these guys. I tried to ignore them, but noticed that they kept looking over at me and whispering to each other. Then my dog, who
Okay.
usually will stay in the water the full time I'm there, came over and laid in between me and this group. I got a bad feeling from them and decided to cut my day short and go home. I grabbed all my stuff and started to walk out of there like nothing happened, but this group started to follow me.
Uh,
Yeah. Not only did I have a bad feeling, but I can tell my dog is freaking out because she keeps looking behind me and growling. This group is getting louder behind me and somehow keeping up with me, which is a feat because I'm a fast walker, and so I know they're doing this on purpose. I'm trying to think of a way out of this situation, knowing in the middle of the week I won't get much help from any neighbors and no one's really around. So then I start to think on the one kid that looked kind of familiar, and it suddenly hits me. I know him. This part is like really smart of her, and she's very lucky she knows him. And it's also baller because this is what she does. So I suddenly spin around and address him by name and tell him I used to change his diapers, which causes his friends to burst out laughing. It's like, boned. Like, yeah.
I mean, it's something you could probably only get away with if that's actually true, but damn!
Yeah. Right? I'm like, this story makes more sense if because I was reading it and I was like, is this a girl? And I was like, it has to be a girl, doesn't it? Babysit changes
Okay.
diapers.
I
It says
guess, yeah.
yeah, so they all burst out laughing. I allow them close enough to walk with me to try and take control of the situation. I start asking him about his family and his brother. They ask me what I'm doing that day, and I still feel super creeped out, and my dog still won't come near us. So I lie and say that my brother is just up the road and then I'm gonna meet him. And I throw in that I'll hang back and let them walk ahead because my dog is clearly uncomfortable. Which I lie again and tell them is because she was abused by a man and she just hates men. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. At this, they say, actually, we're gonna go back to the beach, and they turn around and leave. Uh, and
Good.
this, like, crazy to think about it. So this story ends with 1 year later, I heard about a gruesome murder the next town over. This kid and his friends broke into his 75-year-old grandpa's house, robbed him, and brutally beat him and then tortured him to death. The kid I
Oh,
knew was only
God.
14, and the friends he was with ranged from 16 to 23. I don't know if they were planning on doing anything to me that day, but I'll always trust my gut and have since. So that was like the group of kids she saw that day.
Damn.
Like, oh, that creeps
Yeah,
me out
like
so much.
fucking Clockwork Orange. Sounds like she just avoided. But that's,
Yeah.
oh,
She's so
those,
lucky she knew the one
oh.
kid and like seems like she at least diffused the situation, made it so uh
Hmm.
like personal connection with one of them and then
Yeah.
was like lied her way out saying her brother was gonna be there and like I'm just gonna hang back kind
I
of
mean, do
thing.
whatever you gotta do. Lie.
Yeah.
Appeal to the fact that you're a person. If someone's got you in a place where they're like, oh, yeah, I'm just gonna, like, kill you or not, whatever, treat you. Oh,
Yeah.
it does remind me of, yeah, I like listening to ones where they have like scary close encounter stories because I don't
Mhm.
know, they're very, very creepy because we're all like, okay, yeah, we can picture that happening. Like,
Yeah. That's why I
yeah.
liked these because all something like actually terrible like happened. Like these
Mm-hmm.
are very close misses. Like it's crazy. This last story is also fairly short. And this was
Oh,
from
okay.
BuzzFeed, BuzzFeed.com. I'm sure they also got it from Reddit. Um, but I thought it was funny because
Yeah,
little
they do that.
their little thing, their headline was "Listen to your belly buzzer." And I
Oh
was
my
like, "What?
God.
Your belly buzzer? I've never heard that."
Your belly buzzer.
Yeah.
Listen to your Peter tingle. No, you said tingle in the last one. We were just watching, or when I came
Yeah.
home, Pat had not Supernatural, Spider-Man on. Oh my God, I can't even talk.
So this one uh says it's user Stephanie C43.
It's got a nice
Um
ring to it.
yeah. It starts when a sudden urge to move to a different room could have saved your life. Which,
Okay.
yeah. I thought this was gonna go the route of the car driving through the wall again, but or something like that. And like people
Yeah.
that are like on their couches and then a car like careens into their living room or something horrific. But not quite. It says once I was staying at my parents' house while they were out of town, and my dad had just finished cleaning their guest room. I spent most of the day passing by the room and couldn't help but notice how cozy everything looked, with the stuffed animals piled high on top of all the pillows on the bed.
Sounds
Mm,
nice.
yeah. Later that night, I came home from an evening out and fell asleep on their couch. Around 1 a.m., I woke up abruptly because I got this sick feeling in my stomach and this thought in my head: go to the guest room, get off the couch. You should not be on the couch. So I got up. I went to the guest room and snuggled underneath all the pillows and stuffed animals. This is 3 hours later, around 4 a.m. I heard someone rustling around in the bathroom down the hall. Resisting the urge to call out for my dad and see if it was him that had arrived home early, I decided to just text. My phone was in the bed with me. When I got no response, I continued to listen. And then I heard voices. I proceeded to lay in the bed underneath all the stuffed animals while my family home was robbed over the course of the next 3 hours.
Oh
I
my
heard,
God.
yeah, I heard the entire thing. At one point, one of the men even came in the room where I was. He turned the light on and just stared at the bed that I was sleeping in. I don't know if it was because I was concealed under all those stuffed animals and pillows, or if it was God's grace that he didn't come near me. Which just like, that scares me. Like,
Holy.
yeah, I waited until I heard them leave to go pack up the car, and then I texted my friend to call 911. If I ever had the feeling to get up and go to the guest bed, or oh, if I never had the feeling to get up and go to the guest bed, this would probably be a different story, because they would have just been like
Yeah.
on the couch. Like,
I can't believe, yeah, that they were still unseen.
right? It's like those things in the movie, and you're like, it's right there. Like, just because they're hidden by stuffed animals, they're still there. Like,
I know. I would
that's
like
all I could think of. Yeah.
put stuffed animals around where my pillow was so I couldn't see the rest of the room, but I didn't really
Mm,
think that the rest of the room couldn't necessarily see me. It's
yeah.
like, oh my God. And yeah, it is weird. Like it reminds me of my cases too, because when it presents itself in like almost like a voice in your ear that's like, you need to do this now.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, sometimes we have feelings or we think, oh, I should do this, but it's when it's like specific like that. It's not like
Yeah.
you should do your homework. You should
Yeah.
probably go to the dentist. It's like, no, you should get up and go to this other room right now. I'd be like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why these were the ones, like, I read a lot of them, but these were the ones that I think really stuck with me and stuck out to me,
Yeah.
of like, yeah, very serious situations that these people managed to get themselves out of. Like,
3 hours robbing the house. Holy shit. They must have
yeah.
taken like all the electronics, everything.
Yeah, it said they were packing up the car, so yeah, I assume they took a lot
Holy
of stuff.
shit.
Which, even if you go to like she wasn't actively hiding. She was just in the bed that happened to be set up in a specific way that she was like concealed in it, which also kind of
Yeah.
shocks me. Like between all the
Yeah.
pillows and stuffies, that also saved her.
I know.
Like,
You'd think you'd, well, depending on the bed and the stuffies, you think you
yeah,
could
in a
get her off
guest
in the
bedroom.
closet.
Yeah.
My daughter's got a lot of stuffies on her bed. She barely uses a real pillow. It's just like a jumble of. Sometimes I'll pull stuff out to like clean blanket. It's like, okay, let's change your sheets. And then I'm like, what is on this pile? You have like a coat in here. You're like sleeping on this pile of like clothing like a homeless person.
Wow.
But it would really conceal her quite well, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So
Jeez.
that is one positive.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
But yeah, those are my cases.
All right. That was awesome.
Nice and
Well,
short. Short for today. But
hey, we don't mind that sometimes.
yeah,
Because
we'll
a
be right
lot,
back.
yeah, a lot of these cases you do find only a paragraph or two on them. But,
Yeah.
I found a book and I found a way to make myself long winded as usual. So we'll take a quick break.
I'm excited. Like these kind of stories.
I know. They're so, if not fun, at least very, very interesting.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. All right. Do we think Gordo has sleep apnea? Just kidding.
Maybe. I don't think so. He sleeps too much. He looks so peaceful too. I'm just like
Sometimes
so
I'm like,
jealous.
just kind of trying to gently almost wake Pat up so that he'll turn on to the side so that he doesn't snore as much. But he says that I do snore when I've had too much to drink, so there you go. Karma.
Yeah.
But cat snores just sounds so like adorable.
It's pretty cute. I have to record it one time.
Fenrir was just like sniffing me so hard that he starts to like snort like a pig when he thinks you smell good or he's trying to like smell what you've been eating. I'm like, I literally just had some bites of chicken. What do you want from me? He's like, I was like, okay, buddy. Sure. That's why sometimes I call him Officer Fenrir when he sniffs my breath when I get home. All right, so we're gonna get into some what is often called the third man syndrome, because people can't think of a better name in the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
I had never
great
heard it
name.
called that before you said that, so.
Yeah. I'd never heard it called that before. I had heard it like specifically featured as like a theme on a podcast.
Yeah.
But it's basically something you've all probably heard of because as like in a couple of the cases you had, it's like often presents as like a voice people hear in their head as in like there's a, I guess, quote unquote, a third man, although often, as we'll find out, and as is mentioned in mine, it usually comes when you're alone. So probably be more appropriate to be called a second man. Yeah, I don't know, but I do have a little bit more on the origin, just in the fact that the name comes from a T.S. Eliot poem, which is called The Wasteland. I know.
Fun.
I guess we're not good enough English majors to have known that. Also because, like, this one article was like, gave it the caveat of perhaps the most famous modern English poem. And I was like, is it?
I'm pretty sure what is it? Like a fork in the road? Is that not the most?
Okay, that one I don't know. You know what I thought of? I thought of like A Night Before Christmas or Flanders Fields.
Oh, okay.
Those are the ones I thought I could probably say that poem from, But no, we don't know poetry. That's the thing. We're not cultured enough these days.
Yeah, I'm not a poetry person to begin with.
I literally am like a fork in the road. Now I'm trying to think what the hell.
It's about taking the path less traveled. That one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds very profound.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they said this most likely comes from the T.S. Eliot poem The Wasteland from 1922. Hello, 100 years ago.
Yeah, 101.
Right? It's like, okay. A part of it reads, "Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together." So.
That's it?
I guess that's the part it might be based off of. Yes, I'm not sure. Oh, I'm sure there's more to the poem. I hope.
Okay.
It's a two-line stanza.
I just immediately thought, those I think they're like posters for like Christianity or like Jesus, and it's like, when I walk across the beach, he walks beside me, and those footprints and the sand.
Yes.
That's what I thought of immediately.
No, true. Because it does call that to mind for me too, because that's a pretty famous one where it's like, oh, those times when there was only 2 footprints, that's when I carried you, or whatever the fuck. Yeah, it's like, I don't know if it's actually a poem or just kind of some platitude story, but yeah. I thought of that one too. But also, they expanded on it in the one article and said that's despite the fact that Eliot, as in T.S. Eliot, was inspired by Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton, who described a fourth presence he had detected in his party of three. And
Oh,
even though
that's,
he, or just as likely she, most often appears to a single soul in deep physical distress. So I think the third man syndrome is a bit of a misnomer, if you will. It really should
yeah,
be called something different.
the
But
second or the fourth woman.
right? Or like
The second man, the fourth woman.
I know it's just because people can't stand to call something like guardian angel or like
Yeah.
things they don't, can't quantify with science, so we don't like to talk about them. It is very common for people to apparently report hearing a voice that they can know as either distinctly male or female. Um, so yeah, it's usually not just like that ambiguous androgynous voice. It's usually like that male or like that female voice, and sometimes they can also tell it as someone they actually know. They
Okay.
recognize it. Yeah. um, Often the presence might be felt behind the person that's in peril, but they can also like visibly appear to be further ahead from them, just like showing the way forward. Um, and other times it's kind of out of the corner of your eye. So it
Yeah.
depends. Yeah. If a person is religious, they usually will see it as an angel. Ron DeFrancesco, who was a devout Roman Catholic, heard an angelic voice call out his name in his emergency, but we'll have a little more on that later. Um, and a female polar explorer saw and heard her paternal grandmother when she was in danger. But that's all I had on that one.
I like that. I like it being a
Yeah,
family member. That's
I
nice.
do too. So often in TV and movies, I feel like it's depicted that way, where like their mother will appear to them, whether to help or hinder sometimes,
Yeah.
but yeah. um, and Joshua Slocum saw a famous figure from Chris Columbus's voyage. And these are just some of the ones talked about in the book by John Geiger, simply called The Third Man Factor. He just went straight to the point with the title.
Yeah.
The author says that in his research, he has found some common threads that come up in such cases. Uh, Take, for example, apparently monotony, because he asserts that people don't deal well with sensory deprivation. Okay, that seems to track.
Yeah.
Or can't cope with multiple triggers, such as a deadly combination of hunger, thirst, fear, isolation, or loss. I mean, it's not great.
Yeah. Those all sound like shitty things to deal with.
Yeah, and all at once, of course, you'd be like
Yeah.
overload. Geiger also noted that we're, quote, hardwired for companionship. Companionship, sorry. What's more natural for us in dire situations than when we're most in need of a helping hand from another human, that is what we have. He maybe could have worded it a little better, but
Yeah.
I'm not the best either.
That makes sense. Your
Yeah.
brain is like conjuring something up when you're like
Yeah.
alone.
Coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Yet they would seem to offer us more than sympathy or mere consolation. They will either motivate, cajole, or threaten us to keep going, to just fight to survive. Frank Smith, a British explorer who was almost the first to summit Everest, experienced the sensation of not being alone. I learned after his entire hiking party had fallen back due to the sweeping wind, snow, ice, and low oxygen, he continued on, but missed the mark by, I guess, 1,000 feet. So he didn't reach the summit, but he was like very close, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah. He said that at one point he pulled a piece of Kendall mint cake out of his pocket and broke it in half to share. I could just picture him.
Feeding
But
it
as
to
he,
no one.
yes, as he turned to give the half, he like realized realized that he was completely alone. Um, yeah, be a little bizarre. But he said, all the time I had been climbing alone, I had a strong feeling that I was accompanied by a second person. The feeling was so strong that it eliminated all loneliness I might otherwise have felt. So he um didn't I don't think survive anything necessarily super perilous, but we're going to get to some that do. That was just a tease, a taster.
Yeah. Well, lots of
um
people die climbing Everest, so.
oh fuck yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'll find these things by getting like an article that has sort of a short list that I can go off of, just because especially it's hard for me to like decide on a few cases. So I'm gonna be
Hmm.
like, okay, this one's got a list, and if I like them, then I could expand. But like, yeah, I was like, oh, there's so many. But also some of these people are really interesting. Um so I don't know. I'm gonna give you a little bit of history on this next guy that we mentioned. So Joshua Slocum was born February 20th, 1841, and he was the first person to sail solo around the world.
Oh, yeah, that's lonely.
Yeah, just a bit. What struck me about his case was when he was referred to as a Canadian, as someone born in Nova Scotia, and I was like, what? So apparently he was born in the humble Mount Hanley in Annapolis County, Nova Scotia. I think I've been to Annapolis County, maybe Annapolis Royal. It's beautiful in the Maritimes.
Mm,
I'll tell you. It's probably like you can get a lot of apples. I don't know. Annapolis Valley apples. No,
no.
not as good as BC apples. I don't know. There's a big farmer's market there my mom went to. But anyway, he was also the fifth of 11 kids, so he had a few siblings.
Yeah, that's a big family.
Yeah, probably a sign of the times. Also, fun fact: he was descended on his father's side from a Quaker dude named John the Exile. So I thought that was kind of fun. But I know that Quakers do exile each other if they don't live up to Quakerness. But he then went on to Liverpool to, quote, become an ordinary seaman on the British merchant ship, the Tangier. And he then rose quickly up the ranks. While in port in Sydney, Australia, he met and married his first wife, Virginia Albertina Walker, an American woman with quite the name.
Yeah.
I love it. Over the next 13 years, they had sailed around the world and had 7 children, all born either at sea or at foreign ports. They did not go home.
My God. Okay.
I mean, but as the times were, only 4 lived to adulthood: Victor, Benjamin, James, and Jesse. So,
Yeah, okay. That's shitty.
I mean, rough having to have some of them at sea, too. Like, what
Yeah.
kind of doctors did they have?
In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, just
Or
giving birth.
wherever. Yeah.
Not a doctor in sight.
Nah. So they had a ship called the Washington, which wrecked off the coast of Alaska. And then Joshua, which seems like a weird name for the 1800s, but whatever. Joshua Slocum impressed the hell out of the shipping company by saving his wife, the crew, and most of the cargo at great risk to himself. So they were so impressed that then they gave him command of the Constitution, which was another ship. The name, I was like, is she gonna say something? No, I can't.
No.
I can't make Kelsey believe that he was given control of like the country's constitution. She's too
Not
smart
as
for that.
not as a Canadian. You would not be given the Constitution.
I'm also just like such a terrible liar. But anyway. uh and then at one point he got one ship that he got to like name after his son, I guess, because it was called the Benjamin Amar, which was his one son's name.
That's cute.
It was kind of cute. And I also was like, wait, Amar. I had to go and look what Elizabeth Clare's son's name was for the Alien episode because I was like, wasn't it Amar? It was very close. It was like Ailing.
Yeah.
So but after they had this boat, the owner sold it and they were stranded in the Philippines.
Oh, that sucks.
Honestly, this is like a brief overview of his Wikipedia, which was kind of fascinating. I kind of read a bunch of. They also had the ships called the Pato, the Aquidneck. Wow, that is weird to say out loud. The Aquidneck and the Liberdad, or Liberdade, Liberdad. I don't know. It was called that because something to do with the when it was christened, it was in Portugal and they just got their independence or something. I was like, okay, this is crazy. And then oh, this should probably say his first wife died, but I wrote his first died. His first wife died of an illness at about the age 35 on board the Aquidneck. So he was apparently devastated by this, and his kids said he was like basically never the same after she passed away, which is very unfortunate. Yeah. But it didn't stop him from like remarrying. So 2 years later, apparently he marries his much younger cousin Henrietta, or Hetty Elliott.
All right.
Yep. And
First, you threw me for a loop being devastated, and then 2 years later, and then his much younger, and then it was his cousin. It was like all in succession. I was like, he's devastated 2 years later, much younger cousin. I was like, that's a sentence.
I mean, and I wonder if it did more have to do with him. I don't know, when they needed to take a wife, even up until the last century, fucking Albert Einstein, who I do share a birthday with, thank you very much, he married his fucking cousin. Like, we still did that in the 1900s. It's crazy. Yeah, I know, my face is the same. You're like, no. Okay, but the only reason I even said she's much younger is because, like, they literally mentioned that she was 24 and he was 42. Like, their ages were inverted.
Yeah.
And I don't usually judge too much on big age differences. You know me, because I can't really talk. But I think that one is a little weird.
And they're related.
Oh, always with the second cousin. Yeah, why? I thought because her last name seemed to be the same as his for a while. And I was like, what? Anyway. Okay, yeah, this is why this guy is fascinating. His Wikipedia page was just crazy. He then apparently had a voyage on a ship called the Destroyer, that he called the hardest voyage that I have ever made without any exception at all. So I was like, whoa. Okay.
Sounds intense.
When you skim over the the Wikipedia page, it was like there was just so much like bailing out of water, like constantly. Okay. Like they were like didn't know if they were gonna make it to the next port. It seemed like I was like, excuse me. Okay, doesn't sound great, but Oh, yeah. So there was much bailing of water, and also they were to deliver the ship to Brazil at the government's request in the midst of a rebellion that Slocum was encouraged to take part in on his way. So basically, the British government was like, "You can bring that ship down here. That'd be great. And if you could just take out any of the rebels on your way, that would be great." Literally reminds me of a Simpsons episode. But anyway, um, if anyone cares, it's the one where what the fuck? Hank Scorpion is Homer's boss. And at first he seems really cool, but then, the CIA is coming down on them or whatever, and he's like, "Homer, okay, it's been great working with you. If you could take anyone out on your way out, that'd be great too." And Homer's just like, "Okay." He's just very confused. Um, anyway, so this journey, he happened to leave Sandy Hook, New Jersey on December 7th, 1893, and he was taking on water the very next day. So when I say he was like bailing out the whole time, they were like bailing out the whole time. But after all that, he insisted on being the first person to sail solo around the world. The sea called to this guy from the time he was little.
Yeah. Seems like it.
Yeah, like he had all his kids in the sea. He lost his first wife on the sea. The sea is his mistress. What is that song? Brandy, you're a fine girl, but my life, my love, and my lady is the sea.
No, I don't know.
Okay, I only know that one because they featured it so prominently on Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. No, the second one. I lied.
Yeah, I was like, it's not on the soundtrack of the first one.
Not the first one. I still haven't seen the third one. Okay, don't at me. I'm getting on it. Okay, so he sets sail. This journey around the world is on a ship that's called the Spray, and it was a gaff-rigged sloop oyster boat that he had rebuilt in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. So that's fun. And on June 21st, 1892, he launched the painstakingly rebuilt vessel, and after an extended visit to his boyhood home at Briar Island and visiting old haunts on the coast of Nova Scotia, Slocum departed North America at Sambro Island Lighthouse near Halifax, Nova Scotia on July 3rd, 1895.
Wow.
Also, I loved that he left from Sambro Island Lighthouse. I used to live in Sambro when I was a little kid, so I was like, have I been there?
Oh, nice.
Probably. I do remember living in a house that had a loft, and then I fell down and knocked the wind out of myself, and that was very scary because that was the only time I ever had that happen to me, and I was like, I can't breathe.
Oh, it's never happened to me.
Oh, yeah, I think my brother had the loft, and then like there was a little ladder to it, and I was like climbing up or something, and like fell. And all I remember is like I'm like, were they making fun of me or were they really actually scared? Because they were like, "Are you okay? You're okay, right?" Like I get the feeling that like that was the first time maybe my siblings were actually really scared. I was like,
Jeez.
"That's all right." Okay. I'm sorry, this guy's he fascinated me. Yeah, he was gonna go around the world east through the Suez Canal, which is where all the that boat got stuck like a couple of years ago
Yeah.
near it, trying to go through Egypt, and they were like, "Come on." But he ended up turning back near Gibraltar because there were just too many reports of pirates, and he was alone, and he thought it wasn't safe. So he also was like freaking Moana because he navigated without a chronometer. Chronometer? I don't know how to say that. But he instead used the traditional method of dead reckoning, which required only a cheap tin clock for approximate time. So I'm like, that's impressive. Don't you? I think that's just like you use the position of the sun and then your boat and some other crazy mathematics that I don't understand, and then you figure out which way you're going. Could not do it. But yeah, he was like so smart. They said he almost always sailed without even touching the helm, because due to the length in the sail plan, quote, I should say, because I didn't write this, due to the length of the sail plan relative to the hull and the long keel, the Spray was capable of self steering, unlike faster modern craft, and he balanced it stably on any course relative to the wind by adjusting or reefing the sails and by lashing the helm fast. He sailed 3,200 kilometers or 2,000 miles west across the Indian Ocean without once touching the helm. End quote.
Nice.
I know, I'm like, okay, you know what you were doing. At least it didn't get lost like Amelia Earhart. Um, okay, this is how one quote described it. Joshua Slocum, on his way to becoming the first man to sail around the world alone, encountered one in 1895. Oh, a storm. An inexplicable, or a third man syndrome. An inexplicable presence that steered Slocum's ship through a 48-hour gale while the Nova Scotian lay prostrate with food poisoning. Another quote went on to say Slocum, who had Christopher Columbus much on his mind when he set out on his epic voyage, was powerfully reassured after he concluded that the pilot of the Pinta, one of Columbus's 3 ships, a man who had successfully sailed a tiny vessel into the unknown, had taken over his helm. So that's who he saw at his helm, was this captain of the Pinta that sailed out with Christopher Columbus.
Wow.
I had never heard the Pinta other than something we had in book club where someone used it as an example in the quiz. The Pinta
Oh,
de Santa Maria.
I do not remember that. Yeah.
I don't know. I think Gail did. Yeah. So the only thing to me was interesting how he like saw someone historical, I guess. Not someone he knew personally, but he saw
Yeah.
the Pinta captain. He like wrote some journals, so there was quite a few like long quotes I could have chose from about his experience, but I included a little bit here where he said that he must have just come from the Azores Islands, because he says Azores, after leaving the islands laden with gifts of fresh plums and pico white cheese, Slocum was suddenly seized with violent cramps and a storm brewing. His gaff-rigged mainsail was exceptionally large and heavy for one man to handle, but sick as he was, he managed to turn in the reefs and secure the sheets before collapsing on the cabin floor in great pain. In his delirium, he saw the pilot of the Pinta, one of Columbus's crew, standing at the wheel of the Spray. The Phantom said, rhyming, "You did wrong, Captain, to mix cheese with plums. White cheese is never safe unless you know whence it comes." Next day, somewhat recovered, Slocum found the Spray heading as he had left her. She had proved she could hold her course unaided. The taffrail log showed 90 miles. So,
Oh.
I mean, he managed to get out of that, whether it was the Pinta captain or his
His
his good
boat.
managing of the ship, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah. Um, and then the other one that was kind of in the featured in that book that I was able to get an excerpt on, so it was, kind of worthy of a deep dive, was about a man named Rob DeFrancesco, we mentioned, but he was in New York on 9/11, so that was his emergency that he experienced.
Oh, okay.
He had been on the 84th floor. The 84th floor? No. DeFrancesco was on the 84th floor of the South Tower when the second plane struck. He tried to make his way down the stairwell, but was forced to lie down to avoid a raging fire and thick smoke. This is from the book, sorry. It was then that he recalls feeling something grab his hand and lead him out. DeFrancesco was the last person to leave the South Tower before it collapsed. So that's the short story. And then he had a little bit more in the book that was talking about where he was at his desk at Euro Brokers, a financial trading firm on the 84th floor, when the plane struck. And it was 8:46 on September 11th. There was a loud boom, and the lights in the South Tower flickered. Gray smoke poured from the North Tower. At impact, all the stairwells in the North Tower became impassable from the 92nd floor up, trapping 1,356 people. Some waved desperately for help. Most of those who worked at Euro Brokers started to evacuate the building, but DeFrancesco stayed. A few minutes later, a terse announcement was broadcast over the building's public address system. An incident had occurred in the other building, but Building 2 is secure. There is no need to evacuate Building 2. If you are in the midst of evacuation, you may return to your office by using the re-entry doors on the re-entry floors and the elevators to return to your office. Repeat, Building 2 is secure.
Well,
DeFrancesco
that's shitty.
sounds reassuring, right?
How about you let them evacuate anyway? Because the building right beside them's on fucking fire. Right?
And you don't need to tell us about buildings that aren't up to fire code in New York City
Yeah.
and other places, because we've heard about fires and shit where people are just fucking trapped and basically killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's, it's scary. I do love having like the first person view and stuff, though. That's like why I put
Yeah.
in some of the quotes and stuff. It's just like, oh. And also, I thought it was interesting. It said he's a money market broker originally from Hamilton, Ontario, so it's Canadian originally.
Mm.
He also telephoned his wife Mary to tell her that an airplane had hit the other tower, but that he was fine and intended to stay at work. It was Tower 1 that was hit. I'm in Tower 2, he told her. He tried to focus his attention on the screens of financial data on his desk. Then a friend from Toronto called. Get the hell out, he said. They spoke briefly, then DeFrancesco agreed. He called a few major clients and his wife, Mary, again to tell them of his change of plans. Then he began walking toward a bank of elevators. So they basically can't get out of the elevators, and the stairwells are all clogged with people, so he's starting to panic a bit. Quote, he's slightly claustrophobic, and with the intensifying smoke, he began to panic. He thought of his family, that he had to see his wife and children again at all costs. He determined that he was going to make it out. DeFrancesco decided to turn around and start back down. This time, the situation was much worse. Thick smoke poured up the narrow stairwell. He groped his way down, unable to see more than a few feet ahead. He stopped at the landing in the middle of the impact zone on the 79th or 80th floor. Overcome by the smoke, he joined others, about a dozen people in all, some stretched out face down on the concrete floor, others crouched in the corners, all gasping for air. They were blocked from descending further by a collapsed wall.
That would be so scary.
I know.
Like, I can't imagine being that high up and trying to evacuate when there's no path.
Yeah, it's all
Like,
fine every day when nothing's happening, but the minute you
yeah.
need the emergency systems in place, like, they better work. But at the same time, I'd be scared to be getting in an elevator in
Yeah.
emergency like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't get in an elevator at all.
Sometimes that can be the death of you.
Yeah.
I've certainly heard crazy cases like that. I saw Gordo
Yeah,
moving.
came to lay in between his basket and the partially on the laptop.
Oh, okay.
Buddy, hey,
Well, it's funny.
little boy.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Sorry, it just makes me think of other cases. Oh yeah. He could see panic in their eyes and fear. Some were crying. Several began to slip into unconsciousness. Then something remarkable happened. Someone told me to get up. Someone, he said, called me. The voice, which was male but did not belong to one of the people in the stairwell, was insistent. Get up! It addressed DeFrancesco by his first name and gave him encouragement. It was, hey, you can do this. But it was more than a voice. There was also a vivid sense of a physical presence. He had the sensation that somebody lifted me up. He felt that he was being guided. I was led to the stairs. I don't think something grabbed my hand, but I was definitely led. He resumed his descent and soon saw a point of light. He followed it, fighting his way through drywall and other debris that had collapsed, obstructing the stairwell. Then he encountered flames. He recoiled from the fire, but still someone helped him. An angel, quote unquote, urged him along. There was still danger, so it led me to the stairwell, led me to break through, led me to run through the fire. There was obviously somebody encouraging me. That's not where you go. You don't go toward the fire. He covered his head with his forearms and continued down, now running. He was singed by the fire. He believed the flames continued for 3 stories. Finally, he reached a clear, lit stairwell below the fire on the 76th floor.
Jeez.
I know. I was like, holy shit, I forgot it was so high up. Only then did the sense of a benevolent helper, one who had been with him for 5 minutes, end. Said DeFrancesco, I think at that point it let me go.
Wow.
Okay. And just to finish out what happened to him, when he was making his way down, he passed 3 firefighters climbing up the stairs. I'm having trouble breathing, he said. He was told he would find help at the bottom. DeFrancesco continued down as fast as he could, finally reaching the plaza level. He headed for an exit, but was stopped by a security guard who told him it was too dangerous. He looked out in horror at the falling debris and victims. He was directed to another exit. He walked back through the concourse toward the northeast exit near Church Street. He was still in extreme danger. 56 minutes had passed since the plane hit. The impact had severed many of the South Tower's vertical support columns. So they say. The heat from the explosion and fire had weakened the steel trusses. The floors of the crippled building began to pancake down in a floor-by-floor collapse. That I can picture. I've seen that.
Yeah. When they do the controlled demos and they start at the bottom and then it like goes up so that it can just down.
Well, that's just it. You see this side by side with a controlled demo. And Pat, my man who's been involved in controlled demolitions in his work, he's always like that is the same fucking thing. Which anyway, I'm not here to talk about that today, but it's very weird how the whole building pancaked down. Anyway. But yeah, that was his recollection. As he said, in a floor by floor collapse. As he approached the Church Street exit, DeFrancesco heard an ungodly roar. He saw a fireball as the building compressed. He doesn't know what happened next and was unconscious for some time after his narrow escape, waking up much later at St. Vincent's Hospital in Manhattan.
Wow.
Yep, so he lived. Yay! And finally, this one that I came across, kind of ended up in our neck of the woods. This is James Savigny. It's like, what that's... Never mind. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. It's fine. I was going to say, what's that actress's name? Chloe Sevigny or something? It's like that. It's something
I have no idea how you actually pronounce it.
I don't either, but I think it's the same last name. Anywho, this one caught my eye. It was also on the list, and then it turned out to be 28-year-old university student from Hanover, New Hampshire, and his buddy Richard Whitmire, who are setting out to climb the Delta Form, which apparently is a mountain in the Canadian Rockies near Lake Louise, Alberta.
Yeah.
So, I know. I didn't know we had a mountain called Delta Form, but...
Sounds fun. It's like Delta Force.
Yeah, there's
like a superhero team.
I'm sure there's just a Delta BC too. Anyway. Because we're Delta Airlines and life is a fucking nightmare. No. John Mulaney. Okay. So, okay, his story is pretty crazy, though. They ascended an ice gully, or couloir. Didn't look up what that was, sorry. In bright late winter light on April 1st, 1983, roped together and using ice screws in their climb. Whitmire, a 33-year-old from Bellingham, Washington, was in the lead and at one point cut some ice loose. He yelled a warning, "Falling ice!" to Savigny below. The ice catapulted safely past Savigny, but suddenly followed by the collapse of a snowfield above the couloir on the north face. A tremendous roar broke the silence, and the bright light was consumed by instant darkness. An avalanche swept the two men nearly 2,000 feet to the base of Delta Form. Savigny was unconscious almost from the moment the avalanche hit. Whitmire might have escaped had the pair not been roped together.
Jeez.
Yeah. Savigny regained consciousness, he guessed, about an hour later. He was severely injured. His back was broken in 2 places. One arm was fractured. The other had severed nerves from a broken scapula and was hanging limply at his side.
Oh my god. I don't like it.
I remember reading one quote about his thing and being like, what? Is there any more? Because this is insane.
Yeah.
He had cracked ribs, torn ligaments on both knees, suffered internal bleeding, and his face a broken nose. The grammar was a little broken teeth and open wounds. He was a mess. He had no idea where he was and what had happened to him. At first, he thought he might be in Nepal, where he had spent 6 months trekking a few years earlier. So,
okay. So he has, like, some sort of amnesia?
Yeah, he's very confused when he wakes up, I think. He had finished his master's degree, and at the time of the accident was basically a climbing bum, quote unquote, living out of his Volkswagen. Sounds hot. No. It took a while for him to recognize the mountain, but gradually, Savigny remembered the climb and struggled to his feet to look for his friend. Whitmire lay nearby, and from his misshapen body, it was clear he was dead. Savigny lay down beside him, certain he would soon follow. I figured that if I fell asleep, it would be the easiest way to go. He lay there for about 20 minutes. Shivers were gradually replaced by the sensation of warmth brought about by shock and hypothermia, and he began to doze off. He realized there was no vast gulf separating life and death, but rather a fine line, and at that moment, Savigny thought it would be easier to cross that line than to struggle on. It's a good writer. I want to read the book now.
Yeah.
He then felt a sudden strange sensation of an invisible being very close at hand. It was something I couldn't see, but it was a physical presence. The presence communicated mentally, and its message was clear. You can't give up. You have to try. It told me what to do. The only decision I had made at that point in time was to lie down next to Rick and to fall asleep and to accept death. That's the only decision I made. All decisions made subsequent to that were made by the presence. I was merely taking instructions. I understood what it wanted me to do. It wanted me to live. The presence urged Savigny to get up. It dispensed practical advice. It told him, for example, to follow the blood dripping from the tip of his nose as if it were an arrow pointing the way. As he walked...
Okay. Did that not just point in any direction he walked?
I know, I get a little confused about that, because it's like follow it so you don't walk in circles, but you're like, if you're following your blood back to where you were, wouldn't that be a little bit of a circle? I'm not really like 100% sure, but
yeah, that's weird. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure. But then again, it saved him, so who am I to judge?
Okay, don't roll over, Gordo.
Yeah, your angle just changed. Ho-ho!
Hi.
As he walked, he kept breaking through the crust of the deep snow and was almost unable to pull his feet back up because of his injuries. Part of the time he crawled. The presence, which stood behind his right shoulder, implored him to continue even when the struggle to survive seemed untenable. And when it fell silent, Savigny was still knew his companion was close at hand. Because of its enormous empathy, he thought of the presence as a woman. Hell yeah. No. She accompanied Savigny across the Valley of the Ten Peaks to the camp he and Whitmire had started from earlier that day, a point where he hoped he could find food and warmth and perhaps help. Such were his injuries that it took all day to make the crossing of about a mile, and his companion was with him every step of the way. When he reached the camp, Savigny could not crawl into his sleeping bag because his injuries were too severe, and he could not eat because his teeth were broken and his face was swollen.
Oh my
He could not.
god.
It's shitty, right? Sorry. He could not even light the stove. He sat down and, from the position of the sun, realized it was late afternoon. He believed that in a couple of hours he would be dead after all. I recall knowing I was about to die, pathetically, in a fetal position in the snow. He had always felt that he might die while climbing, so it came as no real surprise, but he thought about how devastated his mother would be. Then, at once, he thought he heard some other voices and called out for help. There was no response. It was at that moment that he felt the presence leave. It was gone. There was nothing there. There was no presence. There was no one telling me to do anything, and I could tell that it had left. For the first time since the avalanche, he was overwhelmed by a sense of loneliness. Last page. What I thought then was, I'm hallucinating. The presence knows I'm dead, and it has just given up on me. But as it turns out, those were people, and they did come up. One of them skied out, and they flew me out that night in a helicopter. In fact, the presence had left because it knew I was safe.
Oh, okay.
Just like waited just in time. And from the other perspective, Alan Derbyshire, who was at a party with two other cross-country skiers, heard a faint cry. Help! I've been in an avalanche. Had Derbyshire not heard him, Savigny would have been left for the night and would almost certainly have died, as there were no other skiers or climbers in the area. Derbyshire
Wow.
found him staggering around in bad shape. I got the impression that his condition was critical. Despite that, Savigny was quite lucid when I asked him what had happened, although he was obviously weak, soaked in blood, and in shock. Savigny, however, made no mention of his unseen companion. In a newspaper interview, Banff National Park rescue specialist Tim Auger later said Savigny was lucky both to survive the fall and then be discovered by cross-country skiers who happened to be in the area. And Savigny understood that there was more than luck involved.
Yeah. Jeez. I
That's a
can't
rough one.
imagine like a broken back and two broken arms basically, and your face is all busted up.
I know.
Your knees are fucked up, you said, like, psh.
How do you go on? We watched, yeah, that one. I think that was one of the ones I was like, okay, if I have time and there's more on this one, like, you know how they'll just like
Yeah.
have the little quotes in one article or whatever. I'm like, is there any more? Like, what the fuck? How did he live? Like, what happened? So it was good to get some on it, but like then we ended up watching one yesterday on Netflix. I guess it was supposed to be it's a lady that is trying to get to a northern city in Canada. She's trying to get to Inuvik or whatever to like try and find her mom, and then she takes this like plane with these two guys who, when all the other flights are canceled, they're still going out. And at first they're like, no, no, we don't want to take you. And she's like, come on, I'll pay you. And then after the plane crashes, spoiler alert, because it's a survival story, and it says that
Yeah.
when you look it up on Netflix. it's like she finds out that maybe they weren't just normal people after all. And it's like yeah, of course they had drugs, but
Yeah.
it was it was really interesting. It was neat seeing her like go through all this, and just like then her mom would show up, or her dad, or whoever she was seeing to like help her deal with her loneliness as she like it was like
Wow.
the real life Alone, because we watch that Alone series where they have to make it out in the wilderness in Canada usually, and they have to like
Oh yeah.
make their own fires. And when she started a fire, she was like, "Fuck yeah, fuck yeah!" It was so cute. I was like, that would be me. Making a
Yeah.
fire without a lighter. Oh my god, like that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, I've never done it, so
It was good. You should watch this. It was called Keep Breathing. And I know I just spoiled some,
keep
but like
breathing.
it was really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like plane crash and
That was
shit
on
was going
Netflix, you
on.
said?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
on Netflix. And then I just finished a book today that I said to Pat, this one says it has a Netflix series. Let's watch it. And it's called Pieces of Me. And it's another like Scandinavian noir author I've been reading, and like it was like okay, well Toni Collette's in it. She was in Hereditary. She's like the mom. I was like, oh, the mom of horror movie moms,
Yeah.
almost. But like, yeah, the like books like, how do you know, mom, criminal, killer? How do you know when you just have pieces of her? And it's called Pieces of Me or whatever. And I was like, ooh, now we can watch the Netflix special. So I'll have to tell you if it's good. So that,
Yeah, nice.
I mean, there's, it has an interesting premise. They like are in a diner, and then this guy comes in and starts shooting the place up. And then her mom just seems like weirdly calm and is like, don't kill my daughter. And he tries to stab her, and she like holds her hand up, and he like stabs her in the hand. And she's like, no. You know what I mean? Like, and then that's how the
Oh,
girl's like, oh my God, why were you so calm? And everyone's like, how did you deal with that? Like, what the fuck? It's really interesting. You'd like
weird.
it, I think. And this has been Book Talk. What is Gordo doing? Kelsey's distracted petting Gordo.
All he's doing is looking cute and not
Those
attacking me
bastards.
for the moment.
They just act like assholes, and then they act cute, and then you're like, "Aww."
Yeah, right? I see him
How
asleep and
dare
his
I?
belly's out and his paws are like this and he's and I'm like,
Hands on the chest. Oh, Pat will sleep like that, like a vampire. No.
I call it bunnying. He's bunnying right now.
Oh,
These are
he
his
is. Okay,
these
yeah,
are
yeah,
his
yeah.
feet
Well, okay, some books will call
and
it
his
like
belly.
this cat or this dog looks like they are laying up like a dead bug. Yeah, like with the
Nah.
like that
I
they're
call
dead.
it
Like
bunnying because it's like bunny paws.
okay,
Bunny paws. Boing 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 boing.
hands in the air,
Put
wave
my
them like you just don't
hands
care.
up.
Oh my God, Kelsey, I put like 2 or 3 fucking pictures in a folder as you were talking, and then I
Oh.
didn't upload them because I was like, I'm gonna do it this time. But anyway, it's fine. It
Look
was
at them. They'll
just
be on the website for everybody
I
to
liked that you used, speaking of those ones, you used the guy's picture from my case for the last episode. And I was like, yeah.
Oh, the
I would
killer kids.
yeah. I don't know, sometimes I always get excited. I'll be like, Kelsey used my case's
I try
picture.
and find like which one I like the best out of like both sides. It was either gonna be that or it was gonna be the CCTV footage. I was like, I don't really want CCTV
Yes.
footage of like a 14-year-old running around in their underwear. That's
I
the
added that to the
background.
Instagram post today, yeah, when I finally got
Yeah.
around to it.
I was just
But
like, I think
yeah.
yours has more of an impact. Because he does not look like a kid,
I
like being
know,
arrested.
that was
He's
one of the
like
only ones
taller than both of those cops.
right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, I probably should have put that one on the drive because it's one of those like where I'm talking about him and it's like you think this is a kid, but like he overpowered an adult, and when they talked about how big he was, it's like you could see that in the
Yeah.
picture. Like he is thick. Like yeah, he looks
Yeah.
bigger than the adults arresting him, and he was like 15.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Ooh. Crazy. You guys should go listen to it. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
And then we did our aliens palette cleanser, and
Yes. Oh my god.
now we're on to this, which is very interesting also, I think. So we got to
Yeah.
some
Gordo.
interesting, yeah, we didn't go back to a true crime. We went to some mysterious
You see
shit.
what I'm doing?
I
Now
mean,
he's being shit. Because
Gordo's had
he hooked his
some meth.
arms in the lamp and then tried to throw it off the desk. And I stopped him.
Gordo needs some attention. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, now I just see his butt.
Bye. Okay.
I didn't. I loved seeing you the other day, Gordo. Oh.
Yeah. Okay, Gordo has left the room.
Gordo has left the building.
Saunters out of the room like, fine. Be my way. But
All right, that's all I got.
yeah, very good. It's fun.
So fun.
Catch us next week. We're revisiting our unsolved disappearances.
Hell yeah. There's just way too many of those, and they're all interesting, usually.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
picked one that's pretty bizarre. Like there's a lot of weirdness tied to it that I'm excited to get into. So
That's
hopefully you
what's
guys will
good.
enjoy
Yeah.
listening.
They're hard cases when they're unsolved because you really want answers, as I'm sure all the family does.
Yeah.
But oh, the ones with the mysteries, man, they just get me. They just do. I'm
Yeah.
excited. All right.
Yeah.
We'll catch you next week. Keep it cryptic.
Yeah. Bye. This has been Castles and Cryptids. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Anchor, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and our YouTube channel. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit. On our website, you can listen to all of our episodes as well as view pictures for each of our segments. Check out our Patreon page to view all of our tiers and become a Patreon supporter today to unlock monthly bonus episodes and behind-the-scenes content. We are working on an Ask Us Anything. You can submit questions by social media or by email at castlesandcryptids@gmail.com. Do you have a spooky ghost story, a creepy cryptid sighting, or a thrilling true crime tale you would like to share and have us include in a future episode? Send us your listener story by social media or by email. Please include the name that you would like mentioned. Our music is by Kobe Fair. Our logo and artwork is by Antonio Garcia. Thanks for listening.
Darkcast Network. Out of the shadows comes the best of indie podcasts.